Good morning for those joining us in Mountain and Pacific time zones, and good afternoon to those joining on Eastern and Central time zones. My name is Joseph Roybal Sanchez, AARP New Mexico State Director. We are thrilled that you have joined the first of a four-part webinar series focused on key disaster preparedness topics for older adults and their families. AARP New Mexico has partnered with AARP's Livable Communities Technical Assistance Program and the St. Bernard Project for the last 3 years. In 2023, we had an in-person disaster readiness symposium in Las Vegas, New Mexico, following New Mexico's largest wildfire in New Mexico's history, scorching over 341,000 acres. In 2024, we had an in-person emergency management symposium in Albuquerque, New Mexico, as a build upon to our 2023 symposium. And now in 2025, we bring this four-part virtual training series on getting prepared for disaster as households and individuals. I want to go over some housekeeping items before I turn it over to our partners at the St. Bernard Project. The webinar session is being recorded. We would like to know who all is joining us, so add your name and location, city, state, in the chat. We invite attendees to use the Q&A function throughout the session. At the end of today's seminar, we are asking that you complete a brief survey to be entered into a disaster supply kit raffle provided by AARP New Mexico. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Leanne from the St. Bernard Project to kick off today's informative session. Leanne.
Thank you, Joseph, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon as well. Thank you for being here today. I'm Leanne Ortiz, and I serve as a Community Preparedness Engagement Manager at SVP's Disaster Preparedness team. So SVP, previously known as the St. Bernard Project, is a disaster recovery and resilience nonprofit dedicated to shrinking the time between disaster and recovery. So SBP started at the St. Bernard Parish in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina now 20 years ago, and since then has expanded to cover other intervention points across the disaster cycle, as you can see here on the screen. So at SBP, we believe that achieving personal and community resilience and mitigating risks requires the efforts of multiple sectors working together. And we truly believe that education is the key to driving these actions forward. That's where SVP's disaster preparedness team comes in. We offer a variety of resources to encourage multiple audiences, just like yourselves, to take action. Everything from written guides in English and Spanish, video resources, in-person trainings, and webinars like today. So today we're going to be going over a couple of things. We'll get started with knowing your risk. Then we're going to talk about making your preparedness plan. Then we're going to wrap it up with protecting your home. And then we're going to go over some resources. And today's session, while brief, it is designed to get you started in your preparedness efforts, to make updates if you haven't in a while, and if you're all set to go, to encourage someone that you know to get prepared. So we're going to get started with knowing your risks, because to develop a good preparedness plan, you first need to know what and understand what you're preparing for. So as we know, landscapes are changing very, very rapidly. So what was previously unlikely or didn't happen as often is now becoming a more present risk. So did you all know that between 2011 and 2024, 40 states representing 80% of the US recorded 10 or more major disaster declarations? So in 28 of those states, every county experienced at least one disaster. And as we are seeing in this past week and even yesterday in the southern part of the state, that extreme weather events are becoming, again, more and more present. So as we're navigating, learning about our risk in the places that we live or the places that we frequent, it's very important to note that you should use a variety of sources, such as digital trusted tools. You can use government maps, rely on your local emergency management data and such, so you can get a comprehensive picture of what those risks are so that you are not left unprepared. So in this example, we're going to use the city of Albuquerque, but I do want to note that this exercise is one that you can use, you can do very easily in your own city as well, and not just in the state of New Mexico and other states as well. So as I mentioned, we encourage people to use multiple tools, because unfortunately government resources such as like flood maps can often be outdated due to rapidly evolving risk or maybe limited capacity to make those updates. So on the top left, you'll see that the wildfire risk in the area, the darker the color, the more intense the risk. The same for the lower left on flood risk. And in this tool, it shows a little bit of those risks more being in households, and then with flooding being more in the infrastructure. So think your roads and different critical sectors of your community. So while flooding has always been a concern in New Mexico, y'all have probably seen that it's becoming more increasingly severe, more constant and more present, not only in the state, but also nationwide. So both of these visualizations that you're seeing on the left side of your screen come from First Street Foundation and their risk factor tool. So this is a digital platform that allows you to put your address in or your city, and you receive a score from 1 to 10 for risks like wildfire, flooding, wind, even air quality in your specific location. And it allows you to understand and use that as a tool to better understand what the risks in your area are. On the right side of your screen, you can see FEMA's National Risk Index, and this gives you more of a broader community level overview. And according to this tool, Bernalillo County has a moderate risk rating compared to other regions in the US. So you can use this as well to understand what does that community risk look like for me as well. The New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management is a key local resource that all of y'all can use to understand your risk, to prepare effectively, to stay informed, and navigate disasters. They offer a wide range of tools and information that can help you, your household, and your community stay safe. So I encourage you to visit their website, explore their resources. If you haven't been there in a while, but you've seen it, go swing by again, go through those resources, because again, it's going to be a valuable hub for you, for your preparedness, for response strategies, and also for real-time updates of things that are going on in the state. So I'm going to pause here for a moment so you can take a screenshot of this contact information. As you can see, it includes emails for reaching out to their teams and details on how you can connect with them on social media. Following their social media channels is also an excellent way to receive timely updates from a trusted source. So I'll stop here for a second. Okay, perfect. So while we're on the topic of staying informed, by using resources like the ones we just mentioned to determine your individual and community risks, you can gain insight into current and future risks as well. However, we understand that staying informed about imminent risk is crucial so you can take quick action and stay safe. So we encourage you to utilize local weather and news apps, having and making sure it's powered up, a NOAA weather radio. So when signal is lost, you can still get information through. And to use other emergency and weather applications to stay updated on potential hazards. So on the screen, you can see the FEMA app, which is great to access resources, updates, and information on different resources that FEMA's putting out. And then one of my personal favorites is the Red Cross Emergency app. And this lets you monitor different locations at once. If you want to monitor your household and maybe that of a loved one who's in a different city or state, you can put it there and it lets you know and gives you alerts if there are any hazards. And also it's a great resource, just like the FEMA app, to learn more about how to get prepared for different hazards, understand what those hazards entail, because we don't want to assume that we fully understand what that hazard can look like. And it's also a great way to engage the household and educate them on how to get prepared. So another and an essential tool for you to stay informed is to sign up for your city's alert system and socials, because these systems offer updates on a range of critical information. And that's not only weather alerts, it could be public health alerts, like boil advisories. It could be special events. It could be any type of emergency. So for example, for Albuquerque, again, you'll have ABQ alerts, but I recommend that you look up your city or your county next to emergency alerts online and then register for your alert system for your locality. And then on the social media front, similar to what we mentioned with the New Mexico Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Forestry Office for the state provides excellent updates on fires. The Department of Transportation offers information on road closures through their site, nmroads.com. And then the Public Information Officer for the state also posts about all the hazards being experienced. So it's good to get connected to all those different pages so you're getting information from trusted resources. So we're going to talk now a little bit about making your preparedness plan. We like to split it up into 3 steps. First, with gathering your supplies, we're going to go into creating your plan, and then we're going to talk about briefly about planning for recovery. So let's go over a couple of essential supplies that you'll need for your preparedness kit. It's very important that you have the right items on hand because it's going to be crucial for your safety and for your comfort during a disaster. So when you're stocking up on your kit, make sure that you have non-perishable food, easy to prepare foods, enough for 1 to 2 weeks if you're sheltering at home. Make sure that you're planning at least 1 gallon of water per person. And this includes your pets, please, and anyone who typically would shelter with you. So maybe you know that a grandparent or a parent stays with you in case of an emergency. So put that into account when you're thinking of food and water. And for this water, you're going to think about drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene needs as well. Make sure that you're including your medications, ID bands, hearing aids, glasses, anything that you know that you rely on daily and that you can set an extra one aside. A bucket with a linen handle can be very helpful, not only for transporting the items, but it can also be very practical for like carrying water or removing debris. And then it's very important to also have a go bag in the case that you have to evacuate quickly. You should have at least 3 days worth of supplies. Again, we're going to include non-perishable foods and water, a change of clothing, your important documents, preferably like in a waterproof folder, and then basic hygiene items and any necessary personal essentials. And something that it's very important to not forget is comfort items, whether that be for kids, for your pets, whether that be a blanket, a toy, or for yourself or the entire household, a book or a deck of cards. There's plenty of checklists out there, especially now during harsh weather season. But it's very important for you to customize any list that you get to make sure that it's meeting those specific needs of your family. So when we're talking about building an emergency kit, we want to make sure that you understand that it doesn't have to be costly and that you can do it on a budget. First and foremost, you don't have to buy everything all at once. You can build your kit little by little as your budget allows. This way you spread out cost over time. Like I just mentioned, you want to make sure that you're tailoring that list, not only to your needs, but again, to your budget. Get your essentials first and then build out from there. Then you can also think about getting items at stores just like Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Walmart. Go through a thrift store, take advantage of online and physical sales, using coupons, making use of tax-free holidays. And you can also reach out to your local community organizations. Many of them will offer disaster preparedness kits or items that you can put in your kit, especially now before severe weather. And for example, for today and throughout the disaster preparedness series with SVP and AARP, AARP New Mexico is going to be raffling off a couple of disaster preparedness kits to participants who fill out the survey at the end. So make sure that you're filling out that survey because you can be one of those raffle winners. So that's another way that you can get those resources for you. Or if not, if you win and you know of someone in your community who might need that kit, that's something that you can give them as well. Lastly, and most importantly, and honestly, the one I like to drive home, make sure that you're shopping at home. More often than not, we already have all the items that we need at home. They're just scattered throughout. So we want to make sure that we're taking a minute to make sure that we have all those items in a safe and accessible place because we don't want to assume that first, then in case of an emergency, we're going to remember where everything is or that we're going to have time to get everything, or that if we're not home, that if there's somebody else in our household that's there, that they're going to know where everything is. So we want to make sure that we have all that good to go. And by using these strategies, you can be well stocked without any significant financial burden. And again, just remember that by being prepared, it's more about planning and resourcefulness rather than just spending a lot of money. Going on to creating an emergency plan, this is going to be your roadmap for handling emergencies because it is important to, it makes it important because that way you know what you need to do and your household can just like spring into action. So again, we want to reiterate, make sure that you're staying connected to trusted information sources, whether that be by subscribing to your community alert system, by having a radio, by being linked to official pages. You want to cover all your sides there. So you know that you're getting information, especially if signal gets lost. Make sure that you're updating your plan with any significant household changes. That could be that maybe there's a new family member in the household, or you moved, or there's a new pet. If there are no major changes, it's still good to review the plan, see where there can be some tweaks and some updates. And it's also very important that you're practicing it at least once a year. In our household, we like to do it at the top of the year because it's the time of the year that we have a time to like breathe, reconnect, everyone's in the household, and we can go over what worked and didn't work throughout the last year. It's also very important that you practice that emergency plan with everyone in the household. So that means your pets, your kids, because this is going to help ensure that everyone knows what to do when a disaster strikes. They can learn things like how to recognize weather signs and practice shutting off utilities like water, electricity, and gas. And this might seem unnecessary and sometimes for some folks even obvious on how to do, but once we practice things, it really does help everyone feel confident and ready to take action when something happens. It is also important to understand how emergency plans, the emergency plans for the places that you work with, whether that be school, other organizations, because that way, if you need to integrate their plans into your plan, you can delegate in your household. Hey, I need to go support the school with preparing it for the storm. Somebody else at home needs to take care of this. So that way you're ready to go there. And last but not least, make sure that you're connecting with your neighbors to understand what their plans are, how you can support each other. Maybe somebody has a specific skill, and that way you can all team up and maybe clear debris together before emergency services come through. And then on to the last and third step, planning for recovery. I'm going to be very brief in this section because during the session on July 30th, we're going to have a whole session dedicated to this topic. So I know with the current climate, it is not easy to think about another financial piece, but it's very important to remember that the vast majority of the US has been impacted by a disaster in the last decade. So it's not a matter of if, but when the next one will happen. So some actions that you can take are making a home inventory by taking pictures and videos of your home belongings, your home and belongings. This can look like taking a video today of your home, just starting at the front door and going through the entire house, the inside and the outside. That way you can take inventory of important items. You can also show the current state of the home. Make sure that you're organizing your documents, such as personal identification information, medical, legal paperwork, your insurance information. Take into account that having your important documents in place can help streamline your recovery process if something were to happen. Make sure that you're saving for deductibles or and unexpected costs. That could look like purchasing full fuel for a generator, stays at a hotel or away from your home, having to replace the food in your fridge, those type of things. And lastly, check what is covered under your homeowners and renters insurance policy. You want to make sure that you have adequate coverage to the risk. So you already analyze what your risks are, making sure that you have good coverage. Maybe that can look like, okay, I really need to get flood insurance, or I need to change my insurance to have a more accessible deductible. Now we're hopping into our last section and we're going to discuss ways that you can protect your home. I will make the disclaimer again that we'll talk about insurance later in the month during our session about planning for recovery. So protecting your home is a year-round action that you need to take. It's very important to catch things earlier because more often than not, if you catch it earlier, it's going to be easier on the pocket a little bit more. So there are many inspection and maintenance actions that you can take, and we're going to go over a few. That can look like inspecting heating and cooling systems, your water heater, changing those furnace filters. You can inspect your caulk, your weather stripping, your insulation. I personally like doing this in the morning because if I'm standing there having my morning hot chocolate, I can feel if there's a draft somewhere where there doesn't need to be a draft. And then I can just like put a little bit of blue tape and my partner can come and fix that. I don't notice that's something that works for me. Or if not, if I'm cleaning, checking the caulking, something that becomes like second nature to like check if things are in good repair. Make sure that you're testing your fire alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, making sure that your alternative power sources are in working order ahead of time. You don't want to find out that your generator is not working when you need it. So maybe test it out every couple of months. Make sure that everything's good to go. Inspect your roof from the inside and also from the outside. So that can look like going into your attic, making sure that there are in areas with moisture or that you're seeing sunlight somewhere where you don't need to see some. Make sure that you're cleaning gutters, drains, and downspouts. And then remove trees, overhanging limbs, overgrown vegetation, especially for wildfire prone areas, and make sure that you're you're clearing out yard debris consistently. And lastly, make sure that you're inspecting the outside of your home, including yard structures and sloped areas. Sometimes we only think about the main structure, but we also want to think about the other structures that we have in our households. And something that's really good to do here is setting reminders. You don't have to do everything every single week or every single day. Maybe it looks like taking a day out of the month to do a couple of these and rotating them. You can also ask friends, family, and even neighbors for help with these. Now, moving on to actions you can take before emergencies. Taking quick actions before a storm or a disaster can really help reduce damage, save money, and honestly avoid unnecessary stress. So start by moving valuable or irreplaceable items like documents, electronics, sentimental belongings off the floor. For a water event, you can place sandbags at an entry point. You can bring outdoor items such as furniture, toys, tools inside. And if they can't be brought inside, make sure that you're securing them properly. You really don't want to be the neighbor who's trampling. It's just like 2 streets over. So make sure that you're securing anything that can become a projectile. If you have storm shutters, install them early. You don't want to wait until strong winds. And then you also want to make sure that you're sheltering your vehicle, especially for hailstorms. Unplug any non-essential electrical appliances to protect them from power surges. And if you can do this before, place those items on surge protectors because that would help a lot as well. For high wind events, make sure that you're closing interior doors as they can reduce the pressure on your roof and potentially prevent major structural damage. And then for wildfires, those same closed doors can help with the limit flow of oxygen. They can slow the spread of fire. They can reduce smoke and ash infiltration into the home. Just make sure that in the case of a wildfire, if you do that, that you're leaving them unlocked first so that first responders can still access the home if needed. Before evacuating or sheltering, turn on all of your indoor and outdoor lights to make the home easier to locate if there's heavy smoke or darkness. And make sure that you're shutting off all heating, air conditioning, ceiling fans, anything that will aid to the circulation of that smoke and debris. And again, all these steps aren't guarantees, but they can make a big difference in the ability for you to protect your home. Property mitigation. So we know that New Mexico faces a variety of natural hazards. So while some mitigation actions can be costly, it's important to understand the investments you can take to protect your home. So a great first step is to check in with your local government about existing programs for homeowners, or also learn about what programs or mitigation actions are they doing in the community. So a few actions that you can consider are hardening your home by upgrading your roof, walls, siding, and doors using non-combustible or fire-resistant materials. So these are materials that either won't ignite or are specifically designed to withstand fire for a period of time, and that will help delay its spread. If possible, build or retrofit your home to meet fortified standards, particularly your roof, their fortified standards have been proven to better withstand damages from high winds, from rain, and from hail as well. If you have to change your windows, consider installing a multi-pane window. This is going to add protection from extreme wind events, from hailstorms again, and it can also even help with radiant heat from wildfires. If there is a wildfire risk in your area, and as we saw, that's a big risk in the majority of the state, having an outdoor water source with a hose that can reach around the perimeter of the home would be a great mitigation action you can take. So you can protect against embers, against spot fires as well. And then if you're in a flood prone area, elevate and protect outdoor utilities and service equipment. And again, if you're in a flood prone area, consider elevating your home and obtaining an elevation certificate. And this can also reduce your insurance premium. So going into, again, speaking a little bit more about mitigation, when you're considering mitigation options for your home, remember that some of these options can actually lower your insurance costs, similar to what I just mentioned with the elevation certificate, because your insurance premiums are tied to the risk of your property faces. So by implementing these mitigation measures and investing in your home to reduce that risk, it could in turn lower that insurance cost. So you can learn more about this by speaking with your insurance agent and visiting disastersafety.org and smarthomeamerica.org to learn more about different mitigation actions you can take. Going on to some resources, we invite you to visit SBP's Resource Hub, in which you can find a variety of video, visual, and audio preparedness and recovery resources in English and Spanish. And you can also download those and share those with loved ones. You will also there find a lot of our program offerings. And again, I remind you to recurrently visit the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management page and explore all of their resources. So for today, we want to make sure that we can go over some key takeaways. So make sure that you're taking the time to learn about your risk. Start your preparedness plan. It's good to at least start somewhere, whether that be building your kit, speaking with your family about what actions to take. Implement those quick actions to secure your home, like keeping up with maintenance, inspecting it, getting an alternative power source. Mitigate property risk by maintaining your home or making improvements. So consider if there's any changes that need to happen soon. What can I do to fortify my home? And then make sure that you're staying in the know with key resources. Again, you have a great page, New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, their team, and all the resources that they're put out, they're there and they're specified to your state. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that. Hey, I'll stop here to answer any questions, but in the meantime, if you would like to scan the QR code or the code used that's going to be dropped in the chat to take SVP survey, it's going to help us evaluate, participate, learning, but also you can enter the disaster preparedness kit raffle for today's session. Let's see, are there any questions?
Thanks so much, Leanne, for that great session. We have a couple of questions, and the first is going back to the portion of the presentation where you were talking about staying plugged into information sources and alerts. Someone in the comments here is referring to the recent flash flooding in Carroll County, Texas, and says, and this is more of a question comment, it really seems like the only way to assure people know about imminent issues is to have sirens or to keep advertised cell phones active all night. So if you could just speak a little bit about, what we can do when, there are these events that we can't completely predict.
Yeah, so that's a really good comment. And yes, we definitely as communities need to work on like how can we do like larger or better ways to communicate to folks risk. Like you mentioned, I would say definitely like keeping the phone on. Something that's very important is educating to folks about like what the alerts mean. A lot of folks oftentimes confuse certain alerts to like, oh, they're just Amber alerts, or maybe it's just it's an advisory, but it's not something that I need to take action on. So taking that step to learn more about what do those alerts mean? What do they sound like? Something else that's a really good practice is keeping a radio on, especially if you know there's bad weather happening and you're in an area that maybe signals a little bit spotty. Having a no weather radio on, especially in another room, something that the alert will like wake you up would be a really good option. But then again, very touch and go with the situation over there. So it all depends on how you best consume, how you can best be connected to alerts. It looks very different for everyone.
Thank you, Lan. I know that's a tough one. And this final question here, I know we're wrapping up on time. I'm happy to step in and share if you don't have the answer. It's a tricky one, but someone asks, are banks obligated to give access to account holders that need to get their safe deposit box because important documents and valuables are kept there? So it's a very technical question. I would say we're not necessarily experts on, processes and procedures with banks and that type of thing, but I'm happy to share a little bit from my end if that would be helpful.
Yes, I think the one thing that comes to mind, and definitely I can then Tessa, if you have more to share, it's a good practice to check with your bank ahead of time. What is their protocols and what you can do in the case that you were in that space that you would need to access it after a disaster.
Thank you, Leanne. Yeah, and so I was going to say from my end, really pretty much the same thing. One, would need to definitely check with your bank on what their specific procedures are. I do believe, but please double check, that banks can restrict access. This could look like an extenuating circumstance, like if there's a court order or, a large government investigation or a search warrant, or if you have violated the terms of your agreement. So maybe you haven't paid your rent on time for the box. So there are these circumstances that I believe can give a bank the right to restrict access. But again, emphasizing what Leanne said, really want to make sure that before disasters strike, this is something that you are talking to your bank about. So when you need to get that information, whether it's important documents or other valuables in your box, you have that, the process that you need to take in order to get those.
Thank you, Tessa.
Thanks.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, I know we're at time, but thank you for being all here today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to prepare@svpusa.org. And we hope to see you in the next session. So I'll pass it over to Joseph for closing statements.
Thank you, Leanne, and thank you, Tessa. Thank you all for joining us for today's first session in a 4-part disaster preparedness series. Before we close, please take a moment to complete the short survey you'll receive. If you can use your phone to take a picture of this code, you'll be able to join that survey, that QR code. Doing so will enter you into an AARP New Mexico's raffle for a disaster supply kit. Here's a quick look at what's coming up next. Session 2 will be around winter weather preparedness. That will be hosted on July the 16th at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Session 3 will be around extreme heat preparedness, hosted on July the 23rd, 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And session 4 will be around making your recovery plan in advance. That will be hosted on July 30th at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We look forward to seeing you at the upcoming sessions. Stay safe and stay prepared. Thank you.